This is Mile High.
We have to do it better in order to move people along.
Up, down, inside out.
If you get your mind right,
it is not. It is a receiver of thought.
because love is my first technique.
It's now time for the show.
Welcome to the Mile High Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Daniel Knowles, coming to you from an altitude of 5,280 feet. And I want to thank you for being one of our Mile High Podcast listeners. Whatever channel you are listening to this to, whether it be iTunes or Stitcher or Facebook or YouTube, be sure to subscribe. We never want you to miss an episode because we bring you real tech every week, and we're starting off the new year 2018, and I am so excited to start off this episode with a very spizzed up, enthusiastic, on fire chiropractor out in the UK across the pond. Welcome to the Mile High Podcast, Dr. Ryan Rieder.
Hey, it's amazing to be here. Thank you for inviting me, and it's a real honor to be invited as a guest, so thank you.
Well, we're glad to have you. We hear so many great things about things you're doing in the UK, and so let's start out with people getting to know you better. I know, for example, that you run 9 offices in the UK, which is phenomenal. It's changing a lot of spines and lives. First of all, how did you find your way into chiropractic?
So I always like to tell everyone, and as a speaker and all those type of things, you always like to have a big dramatic story as to why you went to chiropractic, right? I'm going to skip right through it and tell you, I'm going to disappoint you all right now and tell you that my story is very unique. I was one of those guys that got into chiropractic, and I'd never had a chiropractic adjustment.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And my story goes that I was at college. I was mad at school. I was crazy about sport. That's all I wanted to do. I was a terrible student, and all I wanted to do was work with people.
Right.
And my neighbor actually was studying chiropractic, who I am in business with today as well here in the UK. He was studying chiropractic. He'd been adjusted since birth, and he said, you should come across and meet a chiropractor, which I did. I spent an afternoon with him, and I thought, this is a whole lot better than sitting behind a desk. So honestly, the honest truth, that's how I got into chiropractic, and I'll get into it a little bit later, but I didn't go to a particularly vitalistic college at all. By the time I finished, I didn't want to be a chiropractor anymore. And then, thank goodness, my first few positions as an associate, I really got exposed to the big picture, the big idea, and the rest is history. But we'll get into it a little bit later. But that's my story with chiropractic.
Well, that's even more awesome, because when someone does get to find the principle in their own, they always find it in their own journey, right? So I think that's even more, just even more inspiring. So who was it finally that taught, kind of turned you into, expose you to the big idea?
I can't say it was any one thing. I'll tell you that as a combination of a few stories, but the first story was that my very first day in a vitalistic office, it was the first time I'd seen open plan. It was the first time I'd seen anything that was just new for me, coming from a college that I had come from. And I remember just feeling an energy in the practice. And one of the very first clients I spoke to came up to me and introduced himself and was speaking. And he looked at me and he pointed at me. And he said, I told him I was new, I was coming in, just qualified. And he said, you've got a great career ahead of you, young man. And he looked at me and said, don't you ever let one of your clients have what I had done to me. And he had a walking stick. And I said, what? And he had a routine discectomy, right?
Wow.
And he was paralyzed on one side, or partially paralyzed on one side. And that really hit me, and I always tell the story that the one thing that he had at that point that I didn't was certainty. As a chiropractic client, as a practice member, he had more certainty than I had at that point. And it was I remember it clearly. I can remember where we were standing, everything. It was a big wake-up call for me that, wow, there's something different, there's something else out there. So that was really part of the story. And then I truly believe that the secret to success is showing up. So I just showed up to every chiropractic conference that I possibly could. And there was a bit of a light bulb that went off one day when I was like, wow, all these successful guys have one thing in common, and that is that they all are philosophically based. And the story goes on from there. It was like as a good friend of mine said, you'd have to be an idiot not to put the two and two together to go, wow, like these guys think, talk, and act this way, and they help and serve a lot of people this way. And it was quite literally that, and then my story came and my certainty grew as a chiropractor. So that's the story.
You know, I got to tell you, you hit a couple of very important things that I want to focus on that are vital. A, your vision coming from an interaction or blossoming from an interaction with a patient, right? So all in all, we get all the noise in chiropractic, the research, the political fights, the seminars, like, you know, there's all this stuff going on. When it comes down to it, we all do everything we do, even I doing this podcast with you, for the patients. That's why we do this, right? We want to see people's lives turn, and we know if they don't get real ticks somewhere in that process, they don't have the same chance for that, right? So like all the effort and energy people look at, like putting on conferences or being on a podcast, it's because you and I hopes this reaches someone as a practitioner that says, oh, that turns on a light bulb for them, right? I mean, that's the bottom line. It's always that we want to help more people, right?
Absolutely. I think I'm an avid reader, and as most very successful people are, and they go through that process of learning. But I'll never forget in a book, Lead the Field by Earl Nightingale. Like, it's very simple. The person that serves the most succeeds the most.
Right. Absolutely.
You know, and it sounds oversimplified, but it's something that I've really tried to embrace.
Right. Yeah, if you're going to serve more, you serve more, then you end up receiving more. And you're serving more, not for you, but because you really know that people need this. And like I'm sure you have tons of those stories of people that you've seen in your offices, and I've seen in my office. Now, the second thing was you mentioned about seeing all these successful people and that they were focused on the philosophy. They had a philosophical focus. You know, big part of what we do with Mile High and the energy is it's a movement, and we want to see the field turn towards tick because it's brutally in a different direction in many areas. So, like, thinking about the UK, tell us about the climate of chiropractic in the UK and how we can, you know, move it towards tick more.
You know, I think the things that are popping up for me right now is Tony Robbins talks about this, is like, you know, success leaves clues. So that was my big thing, and then I wanted to, I really wanted to scale what we were doing, and I was once taught that you'll often serve more people, help more people by being the teacher and the marketer of the thing that you're doing, and sometimes, you know, as opposed to the person doing all the things. So that was a big light bulb moment for me. But that kind of connected with the fact that I was sitting in a conference, and as I say, I had this light bulb. I was like, all these guys just say and do the same thing, and they get the same result. And then when I was thinking about my team, I was like I've got it. Like, and I was really young. You know, I started Halsa with my business partner at 27.
Wow.
So it wasn't that I even was ready to be the person giving the message to my team, but what I did realize was that I needed to be a conduit to, and I say my role, I don't know, you know, it's 27, I didn't know anything about anything. At 33, I still know nothing about nothing. But my role is to be an exposer. So honestly, my biggest role, my biggest job, and that's, you know, Dr. Dan, you coming down to the UK and you're going to be down there in the Halsa hub, is to be a conduit to expose people close to me to the truth. And the truth will always win. So if we can do, that's my role. That's what I've really dedicated myself in Halsa, is to be the conduit. So let's go back to the climate of chiropractic in the UK. Is we've got a little while way to go still, but don't we all?
Right.
We don't necessarily have vitalistic colleges down here, so I don't ever get an associate that comes to work for us that is comfortable even saying the word subluxation.
Right. I get it.
But I'll tell you this: I've never exposed one associate to that world that hasn't seen the light. So I think that really was a lesson for me, is that we're all on our journey, and we actually spoke about this before we started recording, that we're all on our own journey, and to be empathetic of that, and to understand that all my job is to be an exposer, and then people will come on their own path towards that, and it might take them 20 years, it might take them 5 years. My job is that as long as they leave my team or Halsa experience bigger, better people. If they leave better, I'm happy.
Got it. Excellent. And so here's the thing with that, you've got people coming in, and many times they don't even know they've never heard the word subluxation, sadly, coming from a chiropractic education. We have that in the U.S. too, right? And that's impacting our field in the U.S. It's impacting your field as more and more of those people graduate and turn out. So with what I don't know how many doctors you've worked with over the years, but I'm sure it's numerous. What are some of the characteristics you see in the ones that are most impactful and most successful?
It's such a great question. I love answering this question. It really is, and I'll just go one step back. I think that the big understanding of there is also I was one of those guys who had subluxation. And that's really served me with a lot of my team, is because it's not their fault.
Right, absolutely.
It's not their fault. So when I get an associate, really, there's two things that I always say. There's really, one is energy.
Mm-hmm.
There is no compromise. There's no substitute for it, rather. There's no substitute for energy. You cannot, we've had docs come to us we had a Spanish doc once who worked with us, and I'm not joking, he used to make up words in his effort to learn English. Mm-hmm. And he was incredibly busy. What he said didn't even make sense half the time, but he came with a big heart and a big energy. So the first thing is energy. And then the next thing really is, and I know it's very oversimplified, but it's energy and showing up. If you have energy and if you show up, and you can show up, when I say show up, do whatever it takes to show up to as many conferences as possible. Right. Read as many books as possible. Show up to all the trainings as possible. Show up to listen to your podcast, to listen to whatever you can. Just show up. And I'm a real sucker for, if I hear this sentence in an interview, I will hire the guy, whether he's ready, whether we're ready or not, or the chiropractor is, if I hear the sentence, I'll do whatever it takes.
Got it. Yes.
Then I can always work with someone like that. So it's energy, showing up, and a whatever it takes attitude. Don't worry, I'll go observe whoever I need to observe. I'll show up to any conference I need to show up to. It's impossible not to succeed in time. Everyone's time is different, but those are my big attributes that I've always seen successful team members.
Well, and there you go. Success leaves clues, right? So, and that's a huge one. And I've seen that as well. Now, with that, okay, you run 9 offices.
Yeah.
Let's see a little bit of a day in the life of Ryan Rieder. What is that like?
So you got a lot of those entrepreneurs. So I'm an entrepreneur. I love business, right?
Right.
And if you look at, many of us have probably done lots of those personality or entrepreneur profiles.
Right.
So my profile is I'm not the most organized. I am a great starter. I'm not the best finisher.
Uh-huh.
And I have, I work well with the team around me. I work well with the team. So a day in the life of Ryan is really I don't always, within the head office, I don't always go in every day.
Uh-huh.
We run our business very much. We have a big Tuesday. We do back-to-back meetings. But most importantly, the biggest thing I can kind of relay across this is I have a leadership team. Mm-hmm. Leadership team. So I sit in what you will the visionary seat in my business, and then we have one of my best friends who is the integrator in my business, and then we have head of HR, head of operations, and all things like that. So I don't really know how to answer that question. Besides, I know my number one role is to try do as little doing as possible. Got it. And I don't always get it right. I know if something's not happening in my business, it's because I'm in the way.
Yes.
But I often forget this, and then I want to try harder. And then in my effort to try harder, you can ask my team. I mean, it's a team of like 6 leaders, and that we meet. We run the business, and they often they'll tell me to get the hell out the way half the time, and we know that's what we function. We're functioning really well. So I'm one of those cliche guys. I'll tell you, it's really the team that run Halsa, and I am. I'd make some strategic decisions every now and again. I come in and I run a lot of the events and conferences, and that type of thing also. But that's really in the day. My daily job is to try not get in the way.
Yeah, well, you just made me think of a very important quote, and I want to see what you think of this quote, because it goes along exactly with what you're saying, I think, which is that the best leaders or the strongest leaders hire their weaknesses.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing that comes to mind when we talk about that is that you have to embrace vulnerability I believe, to do that well. Because the most liberating day in the world of a leader is when they can say the sentence, like, I don't know that. It's like the best feeling in the world. Or when you say to your team, I don't have the answers. Like, what are we going to do, guys?
Yeah.
And that is a fantastic book. And I can just a quick recommendation for a book. Anyone listening to this about leadership. There are many great leadership books out there, right? But there's one book I can tell you that's just really served me really well. It's a book called Multipliers. And it talks about how great leaders multiply things around them. People make bigger, better, macro teams. Anyway, so that is my little snapshot of what you just said there. Yeah.
Excellent. So now, here you are. How many doctors do you have working with you?
So it ranges anywhere between about 35. So
right.
35.
So that's lots of spines and lives and minds being changed every single day under those people's hands, which means then you have an impact on more people through you, right? Which is changing people's lives. So what are the things that you feel most ignite passion for you to grow more?
Grow personally or
both?
Or just growth?
Both. Growth is, personal and professional.
I think so as I'm going through this journey of business and life and chiropractic and all that, is the one thing I'm learning is to know yourself, to know yourself, as you say. So for me, what turns me on is creating a situation for people where I create more abundance in their life and expose them to chiropractic and great people in chiropractic and stuff. Because when this light goes off, and then I look back at their careers in 5 years' time, and they're serving a lot of people, and they're vitalistic, and they're helping so many people. That and especially when I see where that come from, that really turns me on. My personal pattern in life is that I serve at a certain level, and then I get a little frustrated, and then I want to serve at a different level, and I got to kind of recreate myself and learn new skills, whether that's taking myself online or coaching or mentorship, or it's the same when I was a chiropractor, and I just felt this urge to grow and scale this thing. And then I found the conduit for that, which was just get out the way, expose people to the truth, expose chiropractors to the truth, and help them grow. And then you get to a certain level, and then you ask the dangerous question, which is what next? So for me, it's just challenging myself and finding what they call the different zones, right? So you go through the green zones, like that purple patch that you're in, and what's above the green zone. Above the green zone is another red zone. So for me, it's finding another red zone, which is finding an uncomfortable place again, where it's new. I've got to learn it from scratch again. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but I remember Tony Robbins saying that he was studying happiness or fulfillment in the most fulfillment. Yeah, fulfillment in the most fulfilled people in the world. And the one thing he concluded after studying the most fulfilled people in the world is there's one word that they all have, that if you can do this one thing, you will be fulfilled. And the one word was growth.
Yeah.
So
And that's an important thing, because that red zone is where growth happens. Yeah. It's getting out of that comfort zone. You get it. The more you stay in what's comfortable for you, more stagnant you are.
Yeah, so it's quite a vague answer. I'm so sorry.
No,
that's
it's not a vague answer. So people that are big producers in their lives, whatever it is, whether it be a chiropractor or a musician or entrepreneur, whatever it might be, they tend to have rituals in their lives that especially in the morning. Are there any particular daily or morning rituals that help you thrive?
Yeah, I have a newborn, 6-month-old. So at the moment it's sleep, but
Yeah,
No,
those babies kind of disrupt your rituals, don't they?
Yeah, big time. But I will say I was used to be very, very disciplined, and I still have routines that I do. So I could probably break down my morning routine for you, and this has served me very, very well. So I'll normally wake up, I'll down a big, well, in the UK we call it a pint of water. I have some lemon water. I have a green juice every morning. I'll always do, if I can just do, especially with the baby now and everything, if I can just do 10 minutes of mindfulness, meditation, and prayer. Or that just is amazing. And then I'll do some declarations and that type of stuff, and priming that I learned from Tony Robbins. So that little sequence I can do, that can be an hour, or that can be 15 minutes if I'm really pushed. But if I can just do that little sequence, and especially and then I end that with a gratitude, which is twofold. What am I grateful for today? And I can write those down. I have a gratitude journal. And the other part of the gratitude is I send 2 or 3 text, emails, or Facebook messages of gratitude to someone or some person. So that's my little morning routine.
Awesome. That's awesome. And do you find that if you miss your routine, it messes you up?
Yeah, absolutely. I miss it. And just for anyone watching this, I miss it all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not like, but my big thing is just get back on the horse. And
Right.
I've got periods where I'm just, it's clean, it's neat. I'm in routine, and then sometimes I do a lot of speaking. You are coming from Canada. Well, you'll know T. Harbecker.
Right.
I do a lot of training in business coaching for his organization. So when I'm in Europe teaching a lot, I travel a lot in Europe. Then my routine is thrown out a little bit. So
Yes.
it's just like getting back on the horse whenever I can.
Right, absolutely, and that's exactly what it is. Just like you see with patients in their health, right? So a patient's going to fall off things, and it's our job to raise them up and mentor them to get back on the horse. It's the same thing, right? So we do that, and I find that too. I find that with working with patients or working with team members, the more that I put on a mentor hat, that okay. Rather than being that I'm directing them or something like that, or telling them what they need to do, I can put on this mentor hat and say, okay, how would I mentor them in this? Then I completely can go into a different space of myself, and it's more productive.
Yeah, absolutely. You're able to take yourself, you almost look at yourself as a third party, and then
Right.
Yeah, good stuff.
Absolutely. So now in this, what are some of the things in taking care of people that you do as a team? So you got 9 offices, like you said, like Tuesdays meetings. You've got to do some things as marketing the office together, or maybe team building together, or things like that. What are things that break that down for all of you?
I guess if I had to leave anyone with a few things here, it would be, so we try to get together the goal is, but when you've got 9 offices spread out around the UK, it's quite hard to get everyone together, right?
Right, yeah.
So we do at least a meeting every 4 to 6 weeks, and that's a 2 to 3 hour meeting in the Halsa Hub, and that's in Windsor, so we get everyone together for that. On top of that, we do about every 90 days, we'll do a breakthrough weekend or day where we get there nice and early, 8, 9 o'clock, and we go till 9, 10 o'clock at night, and we do a few breakthrough events. We've done everything from fire walking to arrow breaking and all those good things. And then those are mixed up with, say, technique stuff. We've had Dr. Tim Young's been down. We've had Dr. Fred Schofield down to speak to the team, Patrick Jen Tempo spoken to the team, Brad Lewacki. We've had a lot of people down here, and so it's inspiration. But honestly, the more we meet, the more meetings, not less.
Yes.
And this is going to be tough when you're running a team, because there's actually a great book called Death by Meeting. And it is, people hate meetings, right? But honestly, you need to get in the meeting rhythm, so more meetings, not less. I've gone both ways. I've had many, many meetings, almost too many, and I've had too little, and I'll take too many, and the trouble that causes over too little any day of the week.
Got it.
So that both have their ups and downs with the team, etc. So yeah, those are some of the things that we keep. And honestly, if we don't meet at least every 19 days, you can just feel everyone drifting apart a little bit. And it's still not enough. So there's that, and then we have series of what we call level 10 meetings within our. So we've got departmental meetings, head office meetings that kind of filter down, and the messages. And the biggest problem in a slightly bigger organization is that communication gets lost somewhere. So that is our biggest challenge, is always making sure we over communicate.
Right, and so if you're coordinating all of that stuff and using a team to help you coordinate clearly, then you're going to help everybody more on point, more together. And hey, that's one of the chiropractic principles, right? Coordination. So
communication, above, down, inside out, right?
Right.
So that's a big part of it. But we mess up with that a lot, and I don't think you can ever actually get your communication perfect within a slightly bigger team. It's just tough. But it's just this ongoing battle you've got to work hard on.
Okay, so now if you got someone who's on fire for chiropractic, they're just out of school, whether they went to a vitalistic school or a non-vitalistic one, but they're now like, all right, I've got this. I want to adjust people. I'm focused on subluxation, but I'm starting from ground zero, right? What are the things that you would tell them?
Patience. Every master was once a disaster. Every master was once a disaster. It will come. Just keep showing up. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest challenges for new grads is you compare yourself to everyone around you. You know, we've got sometimes new grads working with someone who's been in practice for 10 years, and you just can't quite understand why the guy who's one wall away from you, if you will, is just doing so well, and you're battling at the moment. So just patience, keep showing up. And as Winston Churchill very poignantly said, is, you know, go from one failure to the next without losing any enthusiasm.
Excellent.
So those are my tips. Is it'll come, like, you know, patience, keep showing up, and just keep your enthusiasm and energy, because that's it, really.
That's really helpful, because we have chiropractors and chiropractic students from 35 countries that listen to this and download this, so that will be very helpful. And, you know, students come out here, I don't know the numbers there, but they come out here, a couple $100,000 in debt, US dollars, and they want to make an impact, and they need to, you know, give it all they got. And they need all the inspiration and fuel that they can get. And that's why we do things like, so part of why we do Mile High is we know that the future of chiropractic depends on those people, and we want to give them as much information and content and vision building so that they, you know, and business strategies so they can thrive. Because we need them to thrive. Otherwise, the future for chiropractic is not going to be what we want it to be. And that's scary, you know?
Yeah, we have to be all desperate for abundance.
Yes.
Desperate. We desperately have to be. Our offices need to be. We should have as many offices in the same street as possible that are packed. We just have to be desperately trying to help every one of us, because we just don't have time to worry about any competition.
Yeah.
We just don't have time for it. We in some certain places within the profession, we've got some hard work to do. So we just don't have time to worry about anything besides growing ourselves, showing up to events, and being around successful people, because that's how we'll serve more people and help more people.
I love that. Desperate for abundance. That's brilliant.
And we have to be desperate for all of our fellow, like everyone, we have to be desperate for all our fellow chiropractors to be abundantly successful. And we will just be dragged up by it. All of us will be dragged up, you know, rising tide and all that. So until we get there, I think it's going to be very, very tough for us to be, you know, really, really at the forefront of serving people.
Yes, and then all the ships rise together. So that's what we want to see happen. So with chiropractic in the UK, let's get some kind of shining light. What are some things that you're happy about seeing in chiropractic in the UK? Like, I know there's some programs that are coming up and things like that. I think Thomas Waller mentioned, and others. What are you excited about chiropractic in the UK?
I think we've probably got more support from, you know, the docs across the pond coming across here and being interested to do that, and that really helps us. You know, the more exposure we can. Chiropractic's a young profession, but it's even younger across, away from America. It's obviously where it was founded. So for us, that's really exciting to see a lot more people coming across. I think the UCA, the United Chiropractic Association, does some amazing work down here, and we had one of our biggest conferences ever down here in the UK, in Birmingham, and Melissa Sanford was running that. And I think that has just been a real shining light, because you've got 600-700 people coming across to a vitalistic conference where that was kind of unheard of years ago.
Awesome.
So that's been fantastic, and I think the more there's a few people doing some great works with students, which is really good. So those are the big things, just taking ourselves back to those basics.
Yeah, and we have to fuel the students, and we have to also fuel the doctors that maybe are missing the mark. One of the saddest things I ever see is a chiropractor that's no longer a chiropractor, that they're doing something else, and we don't want to see more of that happen. The world needs more chiropractors.
I mean, if I can tell you the statistics here of, I think in America it's about one chiropractor for every 5,000 people, something like that. I could remember stats are depending what stats you look at. In the UK/Europe, and depending what stats you look at in the UK, it's one chiropractor for every 20 to 30,000 people.
Wow.
So when we could, we're so lacking, we're so short of chiropractors. So absolutely, we need more chiropractors.
Yeah. So with those kinds of numbers, there's no shortage of spines that are distorted by any means. So. And can be living a better life. Well, I know that you've got a lot going on, so I really appreciate you blocking out time to be on the Mile High podcast. I want to encourage people to look you up on social media and check out Halsa. You're doing amazing things. And check you out. Maybe, is there any future programs that you're going to be at, or how people can get in touch with you or find you?
Yeah, I'm coming. I'm actually speaking at Focus. I'll be speaking at in Focus. I'll be across there, and I'll be down there. And please check me out on Facebook, Ryan, and the surname is Rieder. I'd love to hear from you. Send me invites. It'll be amazing to connect with everyone across there. And I guess that's it really for now.
Excellent.
That'll be great to connect with you.
And I look forward to seeing you out in the UK when I go out in the beginning of the year, which is kind of be coming up in February. And so it's really great. When I was there last time, I love the UK. I love Windsor. It was our favorite place. That was the first time I'd ever been to the UK for more than a couple hours or half a day or something. And we just really enjoyed all the people we met. The chiropractors we met were so incredibly helpful, and they were so passionate. So we're excited to be visiting again.
It's amazing to have you across here. Thank you so much. It really helps us continue to grow, and it's one of my big passions is just being an exposer and helping making that happen. So it's an absolute pleasure to have you coming down to Halsa Hub and teaching your program there.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And so thank you for taking your time for being on this. And remember, every week we bring these Mile High podcasts with outstanding chiropractors, visionaries, leaders, people connected to the chiropractic field. Never miss an episode. Follow and subscribe on iTunes. And we look forward to seeing people at Mile High, August 16th to 19th. Block it out in your calendar. Rise up to the center of the U.S., and we will see you there, www.milehighchiro.org. Like our page on Facebook, www.facebook.com/Mile High Chiro.